to Off the Shelf. I'm your host, Yvonne Wolf. Today, our special guest is popular singer known for singing the national anthem before Chicago Cub games. And he is a founding partner of five-time champion Chicago Wolves hockey team. He is now the author of The Voice of Victory, Wayne Messmer. Welcome, Wayne.
Thank you, Yvonne. Good to see you. Good to be with you.
Yes, tell us about what experience that motivate you to write this book, The Voice of Victory.
Well, it's a story that I would prefer not to have had to tell. The key point is really in April of 1994. I was unfortunately a victim of a shooting, a random act of violence. And as a singer, announcer, broadcaster, voiceover guy all these years, ironically, the fact that I was shot point blank in the neck with a 9mm was horrific. And to come through that, to be able to live through that is pretty amazing. To be able to speak is really rather incredible.
Right? Yeah.
But still to be able to sing is really nothing short of miraculous. And I knew that story had inspirational value for a lot of people.
And there's so
I
many
wanted
muscles,
to tell
right?
it.
Isn't it around that larynx? And
Right. And there was some pretty substantial damage done. And, when you have an injury like that, there's a lot happening within that area that things could have gone drastically wrong.
So it's incredible on so many levels.
Yeah.
So many levels. And this is definitely a story I think we're all raring to hear about.
Well, the book is autobiographical. I mean, I've had a wonderful career of, singing with baseball teams and football and basketball and hockey and
Yes.
and conferences and major conventions and all of this, and as a keynote speaker. So a lot of people have seen the act or heard the act over the years. And I think people want that background information as well. But very specifically, that it takes people step by step through the incident itself, but even more importantly, through the recovery process, which was difficult.
It takes a long time, I would imagine.
Yeah, and not just physically, but mentally, you have to work yourself through a lot of things.
Yes, the psychological and spiritual, perhaps,
absolutely.
conversation.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And, there's a lot of anger that you want to hit something, because you're constantly angry. And the fact that I finally was able to work through all of that, the process, I think, is also very helpful to a lot of folks who have been victimized, traumatized, downsized,
Randomly,
cheated on, lied to,
Right.
whatever it is.
Yes,
So as I guess kind of a self-help element as well in the book.
That's very interesting because usually autobiographical works, we don't think of it as also self-help, but I think that your role that you have played in a public figure and being very much an all-American person, I guess that has really lent itself to an inspiration.
Yeah, I think folks are curious. What did you do? What did you think? And they won't know unless I'm able to tell them at those very dark moments of recovery, months into
Yes.
the recovery process, when you have to deal with the fact that I might not be able to come back again.
Yes, or ever speak even, right? Because
yeah,
the
well,
way that you can.
Yeah. Well, I was told it would be about a year and a half before I would know what my speaking voice would sound like for the rest of my life.
Right.
And that wasn't encouraging to me. Doctors can look at you whenever it might be that you're challenged in one kind of, physical challenge or another, but they don't know what's inside your heart. And
they see the physical
they
ailment.
see the physical, yeah. And, fortunately, we found there was no permanent nerve damage. But I came back and sang. It was at the first ever Chicago Wolves hockey game out at the Allstate Arena, then the Rosemont Horizon, 6 months and 5 days later
That's
after the
incredible.
shooting. It was it was an out-of-body experience. Because there was, and that's where part of the faith element comes in as well.
Yes.
You know, people say, how did it feel? And I thought my comment would have been, if the ice would have melted, because I stood on the ice and saying, I would have been able to walk on the water.
Yeah.
I mean, I was that spiritually lifted, although when somebody says, now what? I should have seized the opportunity and says, I'm going to Disney World. But I passed on that one instead.
But the book where you started, did you start writing the book already at that point, or did you know you want to write the book in that,
No, not by that point.
You see?
No,
Yeah.
no. I really didn't, I don't think I really was motivated to write the book until I was, I dealt with probably the most difficult of all of the mountains to cross, and that is the getting rid of the anger. And, there's this sense of
Yes,
revenge
yeah.
that we have when we're victimized. And believe me, I looked for every possible alternative until I finally had to just submit to the fact that the only antidote for revenge is forgiveness. And so
They say anger.
I did that.
Right, and they say anger could be the most self-destructive.
Absolutely, because you re-victimize yourself every day. And it's a cloud that hangs over your head. We wear a ball and chain on our foot when we're, again, holding on to something like that. And in our pocket is the key to unlock that ball and chain. But it takes, and I'm not patting myself on the back, but it does take some courage.
A long journey.
Yeah,
too,
it is
right.
But well worth it.
Yes.
You know, the subtitle of the book is One Man's Journey to Freedom Through Healing and Forgiveness. And I think the healing is something that either happens or doesn't. It's out of our hands. But the forgiveness is something that we have to generate ourselves.
And it sounds very difficult to do. I mean, when it's something that's so personal, right? So random, but so personal, so close. So I think that's definitely very admirable. And everyone can use that message.
I think so. And, the thing that I like to point out to folks is that we have this strength inside of us, and we don't know. I was reading, I was on a flight, and I had a copy of the book, and I thought, well, I had nothing else to read, so I started reading my book again. And I'm reading through it, and it's funny because I got lost in the novel of it and the character of Wayne Messmer, and I'm thinking, wow, I'm not sure I could have done this. Wait a minute, that's me I'm writing about, and it was me who wrote these words. So it's that
What a
kind of
funny
book.
experience,
It's not a, hey, look at me, I'm so swell. I mean, it has nothing to do with that. I have been so blessed to be in the right place, the right time, 99.9% of my life.
Wow. That's really a very humble message for someone who's done so much. I want to ask you, as popular as you are, and the book has reached many people, is there something that, who did you not expect to read your book? You must have gotten a lot of reader response.
Yeah, I still get notes from people all over the country.
Yeah.
And it's people that I didn't know knew me. And I kind of like that because then I'm introducing them to the character of the story, a true story, rather than someone they've seen over and over, whether it's Cubs fans. I've been involved for almost 40 years with the Cubs.
Right.
The Blackhawks
all the sports
and
fans.
all the sports teams. So that's a different story. If it's a Chicagoan, oh, Wayne, he's our guy, that kind of thing. But
They
someone
recognize your voice.
Yeah,
right?
that too. Yeah, I can't make any
on the
prank
radio.
phone calls.
Yes, that's right. Even on the radio. So.
Right, yeah. So it's maybe strangers when they come to me and they say, you helped me overcome a period in my life when I was having some difficulty. And I said, well, then that makes it all worth it.
Yes. So where do you do most of your writing?
Well, wherever my laptop is.
So you
I
are on the go, a very adaptable writer then? Because
Yeah.
many times people say they have a particular place they have to be.
There are maybe the environment is important to me. I like quiet. I like water. I like a window where I can see water. Those are some things. Maybe that's because I'm a Cancer sign, but
That's funny.
it's interesting because I think that every person has their own sense of what's a comfortable spot for them. My wife Kathleen and I have a home just over the state line in Wisconsin on a lake. And there's a gazebo, which is part of the deck. That's a spot for me. That's an inspirational spot. A spot in our kitchen,
Yeah.
sitting there
Yes.
is a great spot for me. It's
Somewhere comfortable.
where the
that you-
motivation happens. You know.
It's just, even though it's about mostly your life or autobiographical, I've heard that it's not easy to organize,
True.
right? There's 40 years just a career. And
Right.
if you start earlier than that, my goodness, how do you bring it down to this readable size, right? Did you have an editor?
I had people proofread. I basically wrote this book 3 separate times. And it's interesting because then you go back and you're editing or you're proofing it yourself and reading and you go, okay, I'm not sure I like that. Let's keep this, but let's start fresh again with this chapter and rewrite it. The night before I ultimately sent this off for printing, I was almost sick to my stomach because it is a very personal story. I mean, I talk about a lot of, I mean, there's a
The
great
dark-
happiness
yes,
and there's
the darkness,
disappointment
right? Yeah.
and then there's anger. And
Yes.
the thing that I really wanted to convey is that I could no longer house the anger or hatred that would build up, trying to think about I'm just so mad about what happened. Ultimately, thank God, I was able to come back.
Yes.
I don't know if I would have the same message if I weren't able to have returned. I mean, I'm very honest
Yes.
about that as well.
Yes. Has writing the book, the process itself, help you reflect and process that?
It does. There's no doubt. I when nobody was looking, I got a Ph.D. in psychology, and so I was my own analyst in this thing. And when you write things down, it helps you to not only internalize, but then leave it, go back and read it, and you go, let's.
The time to marinate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and we don't do enough of that, I feel, in this digital age.
I think
much-
people need to journal. I really believe that's a wonderful thing. If you're confused, if you're angry, if you're lost, you talk about, and I tell people this all the time, pick one thing that was positive, that was your best moment of the day, and just write it down. Okay. Months go by, before you know it, you're going to be competing with several good things that happened that day to select the one. There's a wonderful phrase, there's a quote from St. Francis de Sales that says, if you get into the habit of looking for goodness and beauty, you get into the habit of finding it. And I firmly believe that.
Wow.
My
Very profound.
philosophy is enjoy, not just enjoy the day, but bask in it. It's like
Make a conscious effort
to be present
Yes,
in the
yes,
moment.
indeed, yeah.
I wish I could, go to one more Cubs game. I wish I had that opportunity to sing at one more hockey game. And then I'll be driving to that event and I'm thinking, I do have that opportunity. And this is it. As opposed to, oh, brother, I got a game tomorrow. You know what I mean?
Right.
It makes an enormous difference. It's an attitude of gratitude, I guess, without being too much of a cliche.
Yes. But we need to slow down enough to to recognize that. I think many
Yeah.
times we're rushing from one moment to another, one text to another, right? Very much the digital speed of information here and there. We're driving, we're thinking about the next thing. So being in the present, that's a very good message to slow down.
Yeah, and it's the stop and smell the roses type of thought,
Yes.
you know, and it's so important. I mean, we never know. We look into the mirror every morning and say, I'm going to live today as if it were my last. And one day you're going to be right, you know,
Right.
but not today.
Yes. And so when you were working on this book, what was, let's say, a difficulty you did not anticipate? When you decide to write, right?
Yeah, I think the difficulty is motivating yourself to finish.
Yes, yes.
You know, there's
Yeah. Where do you finish a book like this, right? where is the point?
You're never done.
Right?
You know,
Yes.
as I said, when I put the final manuscript in the envelope to be sent off, it was like, whoa, wait a minute, I could tweak this a little bit more. No,
Yes,
you can't.
yes. The word choice, you
Yeah,
constantly.
stop it.
Yeah.
You know, find a finish line, and you have to have that faith to believe in it. But as I said, it's a very personal story because there's doubt, there's tears, it's a love story. You know, it's a love story with life, with a wonderful, unbelievably supportive wife, who looked at me in the darkest moment and said, "We should try to accept nothing less than complete recovery." And I'm thinking, you know,
Yeah,
at that point, you know, I'm gashed ear to ear after a 10-hour surgery, and I've got
Yes.
tracheotomy, and you know, it's like, I'll do everything I can. I can't speak, but I'm going to try as hard as I can. And amen.
Amen. Yes. You know, they say that people who are healthy or who are generally healthy, they have the toughest time with being ill. Did you feel that too?
Yeah, I
As
think so.
someone who's always ready on the go, and then now you cannot talk, you cannot move.
Yeah,
And
it wasn't fair. You know,
right.
that's part of the problem, and that's really where you find yourself, you know, wanting to find some balance of, you know, why did this happen? You dwell on that and you re-victimize yourself.
Yeah.
My thought is, why did I get better? Why did I get better? Okay, because many people say you still had work to do. I had a story to tell. Why did I get better? So that you and I could sit here today and talk about it. And some folks will hopefully be touched by the story and maybe motivated, and maybe it will help them just a little bit.
Yes, yes. And then we can all be humbled by the journey, by the experience, because you're alive. I mean, what a right, dangerous shot that could have ended. Terribly.
It was frightening. And you know, when I was in my car, had just gotten to my car and was pulling out of a parking spot when it happened, and a 15-year-old ran up behind me, never saw it. He banged on the window and pulled the trigger. And I thought, no respect whatsoever for the sanctity of human life. I drove a block and a half back to where I had just come from, and I got out of the car and walked back up the steps. You know, adrenaline
Yes,
allows you to do
that.
things that you normally humanly wouldn't be able to do. But as I sat waiting for the ambulance and the police to arrive, I thought, what I do for a living at that point may have just come to a very abrupt, cruel end.
So you were aware of that. So
Yeah, it was not good. But who I was not going to change. You know, and that's why I think that the appreciation of what we have in life and who we are, if we're grounded, for me it was faith, family, and friends. That's my basis right there.
The 3 F's.
Yeah, the 3 F's, which ultimately led to forgiveness, which I put in there, which then led to freedom.
Yes. But you have to start with friends, family, and
Yeah.
I think so. Those are the, let's say, the center or the grounding part of
Yeah, I know. I think of it like a three-legged stool, you know, and that's tough to knock over. But you have to have that that internal feeling and identity of or understanding of your own identity, of who you are, and willing to accept. Because during the recovery, I just had to say, I'll try the best I can to heal, but you can't just heal yourself. You know, it does require some divine intervention, and so I'm very aware of that, which gives you the, you know, if you have been given a gift, no matter what it is, athletic or musically or whatever, and it's stolen, completely stolen, to get it back here is pretty remarkable. To get it back at the level that you had is almost incredible, and it's such a message that I feel compelled that I must sing, I must speak, I must sit down and have this conversation. Otherwise, you're being selfish if you don't use the gift that you have been re-gifted. You know,
that is very interesting. That your book is a product of talking and negotiating ourselves from being selfish. We have to
absolutely.
We have to recognize the gift and then reclaiming this gift that was lost. Wow, that is. I mean, I've heard of other professional singers who, because of illness or some such, not even something as dramatic as what happened to you, that they cannot continue their singing career.
And then what?
Right.
You know, and you ask that question: have I lost my identity? Have I lost my,
who are you then?
My spirit, my purpose? And whatever the gift is, we have to constantly remember that the gifts, as easily as they've been given, can be taken away. Yes. So we have to use them and respect them and share them. That's kind of a mantra that I live by every single day.
That's wonderful to think of the humility of who we are by the gifts that's given to us. Then, Wayne, this book, your publisher, did they help you with the marketing of the book, or?
Yeah, to a certain extent. Yeah, but again, being out speaking, being a public figure through social media, I was able to really, put a lot of copies in a lot of people's hands, and still do. I mean, it's not going to end, And if
it takes a while.
And if I meet someone who I hear is going through a situation or some kind of challenge in their life, it's a good feeling to be able to give them something. I generally will sign it if it's really important to someone. The inscription, which my daughter told me, is, "May this story inspire you to accept each new day as a gift." And I think that's kind of the message.
Well, I think that really speaks to the person who is having a difficult time, because that each day is hard. It's not.
It can be.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It depends on what lens you're looking through, and I think if you're a glass half full person, life is a little better. But everyone is going to come to an end at some point. But there's the beginning and the end. But we have such an interesting opportunity to do something with the middle. People talk about when you see someone's life, birth date, and the year of their passing.
Right, the tombstone.
And there's a dash in between.
Yes,
but
so much.
The dash is what it is. That's your life right there.
Right. Well, thank you, Wayne. And tell us a little bit about what connects you to Glenview. Now,
I love this community. We've been a part of it for years and years. And the people, the mood, I love the restaurants. I have not all, but most of my favorite places are in Glenview. And it's just been a great place to make wonderful friends, and I enjoy it. I'm proud to be a part of the community.
So you have lots of messages for us as readers. What do you have for our writers out there? What would you recommend them, or what is your message for writers?
I would say, I will quote another Wayne Gretzky, the great hockey player. You miss 100% of the shots you never take. So if you have a story, tell it. Find a way that's comfortable for you. Whether you sit down and write it longhand on a legal pad, or you take a recorder and just record into your phone and then transcribe it, or have someone else transcribe it for you. I firmly believe that if someone has the passion to, and an interesting story to tell, that the world needs to hear their voice. And the only way it's ever going to happen is if you get it done and you don't finish a project until you start it. So get with it.
Well, thank you, Wayne.
Thank you, Yvonne. I've enjoyed our conversation and hope that the message hits home to someone, that maybe we can bring just a spark of hope, because I think that's it, and bring kindness back. That's the torch that I'm carrying nowadays.
Yes, we do need the positivity, and your book is one way for us to get there together.
I hope so.
And thank you for watching. Join us next time on Off the Shelf.